All right, I am going to be talking about the kitchen redesign project. All right, so the objectives, just real quick, give you an intro to CHS Pineville Food Services. I will talk about the advantages and disadvantages to the current kitchen layout, and I'll talk about that while kind of going over the layout that I've drawn. I'll talk about my proposed redesign considerations and then the impact that those hopefully would have if followed through. All right, so I am at CHS Pineville in my food service management rotation. It's located in Pineville, North Carolina, just south of the city, and it is a 235-bed hospital. So our food service is actually contracted out to Sodexo. It was Morrison until I think it was maybe a year and a half ago when they switched over. We are sort of in the process of switching from EYR to AYR, so moving to room service. Our maternity and CV obs is actually already room service, so it's really interesting. It's been really interesting to be in a kitchen where it's partially EYR and partially AYR, and it's also been interesting to sit in on meetings and phone calls sort of discussing how that transition is going to be made from EYR and AYR. It was supposed to start, I think they had originally planned for it to start in February, and now it's sort of all up in the air, and I'm not really sure when that's going to happen. So we have one GM, Dave, and then under him are the three managers, a retail manager, our head chef, who manages the kitchen workers, and then the patient services manager, and that is Nassan. She's an RD, and she's my preceptor right now. And then under each of them, there's the supervisors, and then under each of them are the general employees. All right, so here is my kitchen layout that I drew. Tried pretty hard, so bear with me. So if we want to start right here where it says retail area, I'll kind of work my way to the right. But so yeah, right here where it says retail area, this all right here and kind of off to the left, that's where we do cooking, or not cooking for retail, but that's where we sell retail. So that's where we'll have like the fresh food that people come and get lunches. We have a salad bar over here, and then a sandwich bar right here, and this is where you walk into the kitchen. If you see these little boxes right there, if I'm moving up to the top right there and right there, those are hand washing stations. And then over here at the top right, the other box where my mouse cursor is going over, those are that box is the hand washing, and then also an eye washing or eye sanitation. I forget what they call that. But all right, back to the left. So if you walk in here, right here, we've got a big dish room. And then if you're following my cursor, we've got a hallway right here, and this is the manager's office and the diet office. So in the manager's office, there's 3 computers, 3 desks, sort of all combined though, and it is extremely, extremely cramped. It's actually like one of the biggest complaints about the kitchen, and I'll talk about that a little later, but there's not room for people to come in and meet with managers. The managers have a hard time getting all their work done there. And then they also have a lot of papers that need to be filed and kept, in an organized fashion, and that makes it really hard when you don't have the proper equipment for that to be done. To the right of the manager's office, you'll see the diet office, and that's where the diet operator works, and then as well as the host and hostesses spend a lot of their downtime, which isn't much in that office. And yeah, so then we'll go to the right of the diet office, and you see that big mark right there. That's the big door where all the carts come in and out, sort of the main entrance, I guess, if there were to be one to the kitchen. To the right of that, it's the employee locker room. They each have a locker. They can hang up their coats in there, leave their, their bags, their whatever. And then if we keep going down this hallway right here to the left is our tube feeding and supplement cage. So we keep all the tube feedings in there. We keep the extra supplements, so kind of like the stock of supplements, because of course we keep the supplements that we'll use in our walk-in cooler. So to the right across the hallway from the that is a little ice machine, and then the environmental services closet where we keep gloves, trash bags, all that good stuff. All right, if we keep walking straight down that hallway, to our right, we have the first walk-in cooler. That's where we keep prepared foods, juices, milk, and our supplements. And then the walk-in cooler right next to that is where we keep produce that, hasn't been cut up or touched yet. So, big melons, strawberries, oh gosh, all that stuff, as well as dairy, butters, yogurt, that kind of stuff. And then outside of those, we've got coffee and tea prep, some coffee and tea storage. So it's where we keep like all our coffee crafts, tea crafts, all that kind of stuff. And then a reach-in freezer where we keep our purees, we keep ice creams, sherbets, our supplements that need to be frozen, some gluten-free options that we keep frozen. All right, and then we have got in the yellow square, we've got 2 different tray lines, but I guess before I labeled this, I didn't realize that tray lines can sometimes be thought of what you have in a room service, so when the tray literally gets sent down a line, and ours don't work like that. I guess ours are more pod set up, so we have a host and hostess has their own pod, and then across from them, sort of looking at them in the face, is a kitchen worker who's working the line, and they're the ones putting the trays together, or their plates together. So the hostess is calling out, grilled chicken, mashed potatoes with poultry gravy, and broccoli. And the kitchen worker will make that plate, hand it over top of them where it sits under the warmer until the hostess grabs it, puts the top over it, and places it on the tray that they've, set up with the condiments, the drinks, all that kind of stuff. And these actually are set up pretty well. I thought about originally saying maybe we could have more pods so that way all hostesses and hosts could build at the same time. But then I thought about that, and it actually wouldn't really make sense because we don't have enough kitchen workers to, work on the line while they're building, because often a host or hostess who is waiting to go second in building their trays will work on the line if, the kitchen is running behind or whatever. And so that would take a lot away if I were to choose that. So I actually think it's set up pretty well. The host and hostesses do a really good job at restocking their pod refrigerators, between meals, getting them set with the cold sandwiches and salads that they need so they can just grab those and put them on the tray when that ticket comes up. And I really do like the layout of that. And then back behind these, we've got where the tray carts are all left. So they're all lined up behind here. Each has their own spot. They're all, the hostesses and hostesses are all pretty particular about, putting their carts back where they were. And they want to find them, where they should be. And then real quickly, if we go to the right down here, up at the top, we've got a rack where we keep produce that doesn't need to be refrigerated. So we've got potatoes, onions, bananas, all that kind of stuff. We have an employee bathroom, and then we have a supervisor's office, which doesn't even have a computer in it right now, which also leads to an overcramping in the manager's office, because supervisors who need to print something or need to, look up something in FMS, our food service program, our software, they'll have to come in the manager's office and use one of their computers. So it's a tight office with usually about 6 people in it and 4 chairs. So, it doesn't really work out the best. And then the huge space right here is our dry storage, and we keep tons of stuff in there. There's a little hall, kind of like walkway right down the middle, but the right and the left are filled with metal, kind of like cage shelves with all the dry storage goods. All right, so now if we go back to the left side of the drawing in the red square, this is where retail and production do all of their work. So starting from the top, we've got a pretty big prep counter. To the left of that, I know it's hard to read, but that says dessert fridge. And to the right of that, it just says fridge. So in the fridge right here, we keep some produce that's usually pulled from walk-in number 2. Melons, grapes, all that kind of stuff, because at this prep counter right here, we make the fruit cups, which we go through a ton of. And we also prepare stuff there for our salad bar out in retail. And then in the dessert fridge to the left of that, we keep pudding, we keep Jell-O, we keep angel food cake, we keep strawberry shortcake, we keep apple pie, we keep sweet potato pie, we keep a lot of stuff in there that's used or, available every day to our patients. Then across from that dessert fridge, it's really, really hard to read, also not very clear, but that says desserts, and that's just a rack, a metal rack. And that's often where we keep our cookies and brownies and cake, stuff that doesn't need, desserts that don't need to be refrigerated. And to the right of that, there's a little bit more prep room. It's often like the overflow of the prep counter across from it. And then there's 2 sinks for washing fruits and vegetables that we're prepping. And then right here we've got another fridge, and that is we keep cheese there for grilled cheeses, for Philly cheesesteaks, and for burgers. Often we'll be on, someone will be building a tray or a plate on the tray line, and if it's a burger, they go grab the cheese out of that fridge. And then across from that, so those 2 right there, that line right there separates those 2 counters. And there's like kind of almost a wall that goes up. And then there's a small sink right there just for washing, and then 2 big prep counters, but those are meat prep counters primarily. So, getting the meat for patient production and retail production is done there. All right, and then if we go into this is kind of where all the equipment is kept. So I'm going to start on the top left. That's our combi oven. To the right of that is where we have steam kettles. To the right of that, we have an oven, as well as a grill top. To the right of that is a steamer. Right here, where we do, most of our patient production vegetables, just steaming broccoli, steaming carrots, all that kind of stuff. And then to the right of that are 2 warmers, and these warmers are just used primarily for patient production. So when we're getting the tray line ready, the extra stuff that won't fit on the tray line, kind of our everyday stuff like white rice for renal patients, our available everyday entrees, which are tilapia, meatloaf, and chicken. Usually we'll have some vegetables in there. So it's just like extra room to keep things that won't fit on the tray line. And those are used a lot and are often very crowded, which has become a problem because you can't find something and it's stuck way back behind chicken. You're trying to, workers trying to stick their arm in there. They might get burnt. They might spill something. It's not set up the best. All right. Then on the other side, so the bottom, starting at the bottom left of that middle section, we have 2 more ovens. We have the flat top and grill, and then we have the fryer. Then if we go to the bottom section of that, starting at the top right, we've got pretty big prep area again. And this is mostly used for retail and for catering. We have a lot of caterings. And caterings meaning like, there's an employee training that day and we're providing lunch for them. Or there's a, doctor's meeting and we're bringing them lunch, or so on and so on. And right here we've got some cutting boards, some more prep area, and then this is an overhead shelf where often, if you're pulling pans out of the oven with chicken or with cookies or whatever, they set them up there so they can kind of do their work, label them, package them below. And yeah, that is the layout. Over here, the very far left, I didn't go over any of that, but a lot of that's just storage. You're keeping hotel pans, pots and pans. We've got a pretty big spice rack right here, just a huge, Gordon Food Service. We use U.S. Foods, but, those really, really big spices. And I think I might have skipped the pots and pans washing room, but that's separate than our dish room, and that is just kind of right in the middle there above the managers and diet office. So yeah, that is the layout. I didn't find too much that I wanted to improve, and it was also kind of hard because all the talk lately has been about how are we going to change this from EYR to AYR, not necessarily, what we would do if we were to keep it EYR and want to do improvements. But anyway, oops, there we go. So I came up with 3 different redesign considerations. The first would be new and smaller equipment for retail and patient services production with the end goal of a mirrored setup for retail and patient services. So I actually came up with this because I talked to a lot of the different workers when I was doing this project, because I was having trouble thinking of, what could we do to make the layout work better and more efficiently. And this is what like every single one of the cooks said. They were saying that, yeah, we've got this really nice big grill top and oven and steamer, but it's quite honestly too big. And if we were to have two smaller ones that, you know, patient services could use at this time and retail could use at this time without having to communicate with each other, because that's been an issue, then it would be a lot more efficient for both of them. What we've been running into lately is having patient food be late to the line. So instead of starting our, you know, building trays at 11 for lunch, we're not starting till 11:20. And, you know, this makes everyone's job a lot harder. Cooks are stressed because they're running late. Hosts and hostesses are stressed because they're going to be late to their floors. And, you know, the managers are getting stressed because they're going to hear it. So all of them really suggested, you know, creating smaller production area for each of them. So each of them to have their own versus sharing one big, large production area, because they all were convinced that would be the best thing for them. And then these two last things were just things that I thought of. Definitely need to buy one more warmer for patient services production. And that's because, like I mentioned before, the warmers that we do have are great, but they're overcrowded. And that might be a menu issue, you know, us offering too much. But, you know, we've had several employees kind of burn like the back end of their arm because they're reaching over one hot plate to get to the one behind it. And also they're crowded. And sometimes there's not even enough room. You know, we have to go over into, you know, where they're keeping the meatloaf in an oven, you know, keeping it warm in an oven way back in production because there wasn't enough room to keep the meatloaf in the warmers during mealtime. And then last but not least, they really, really need a new manager's office. I think that the office needs to be bigger and also needs to contain an improved storage and filing system. And this would improve productivity by the managers, which is very important, and also just honestly improve, you know, their happiness within the job, because it's one of their biggest complaints right now too. And so I kind of just covered the impact that these things would have. You know, number one, with the if we created a mirrored patient production versus retail production, it would just improve, hopefully, our issue with having patient food being late to the line or retail and catering food being late. And then, like I said before, or for the warmers, we currently have two. They're crowded during patient tray line, and buying one more would improve the space issue. And there's also space next to the two that we have. It's almost like there's, you know, space waiting for a third to be put there. And then, you know, lastly, what I just talked about, the manager's office is packed with both people and files, and space needs to be expanded to improve work efficiency and employee happiness. So yeah, that is my project. Hope you all enjoyed that, and let me know if you have any questions at all.